Nitai, you are one of the most creative people I've ever met. And that creativity, it flows really beautifully into your presentations and your speeches. So I've got two questions for you. The first one being, what's your mindset, your approach to creativity? And then secondly, how can other people who are making presentations add more creativity to what they are doing?
Wow, what a question. Um, Creativity. You see, I never thought about myself as someone who's creative.
Oh, you
Uh,
are.
I, I only think creativity can. I mean, I presume creativity is in all of us. It's just a question whether we are confident enough to let that creativity go out and
Mm,
fail. I truly believe it. If you are confident enough in your failures, you allow the creativity to come out because we're all
mm,
creative. You're creative. Anyone who's watching this or listening to this, you are creative. The question is, are you happy to explore that creativity and completely fail? Because out
mm,
of 100 times, 99% of the time, you will fail by given.
mm,
It's a given. You have to explore. It's exploration. And as you explore, you evolve and you grow and you grow. And all of a sudden, in the 100th time of failure, you're like, okay, I learned this, I learned this, I learned this. Maybe I should pivot. Maybe I should do that. And then something magical takes place. Now, I am not a hero when it comes to this. I am still fearful of failure, but I think now with losing hair and gray beard and gray hair, perhaps I'm more comfortable with who I am,
yeah.
and 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 I am more comfortable going in front of either one person or 10 person or 100 person and completely fail. And if you're
Mm,
happy to do that, you have no issue in trying new things and learning. I think that's the biggest blockage for the creativity. And again, I
yeah.
wasn't always like that, just so we're clear. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is basically people are so worried about things going wrong, about how other people will react to it, or not getting the result that they want, that they don't step outside the box. They just stick to what is safe because they've seen it work before, so they'll do it again, essentially. But that doesn't lead to innovation. That doesn't lead to uniqueness in presentations, does it? It just leads to the same thing happening again and again and again.
Correct. So we need to learn from our mistake. So that fear of failure helps creativity. I think to be creative is only one thing that you need to be doing. You need to question everything and be intelligently naive. You have
Mm,
to apply an intelligent mindset and not take things for granted. If someone says to you, you need to stand in the middle of the stage and raise your hands and use your vocal variety and use gestures, you need to say, why?
mm,
Why? Why do I need to lift my right hand? Right? And
yes.
then unless they give you an answer why, and an answer of you because you need gestures to why. And until you
Mm,
deep dive into this and understand the mechanics of the fundamentals, then you see this as tools. And once you see them as tools and not as the end goal is not to raise your hand. The end goal is to evoke an emotional response in the audience. And if you don't
mm,
understand what the right hand does when you raise it from a mechanical point of view, you won't be able to invoke an emotional response. So I think the creativity is understanding the mechanics, but then throwing them out of the window
mhm.
and using them to build something new, not being a slave to them. Challenge everything. Like,
Yeah, that's a good point. Not being
why?
a slave to the machine or the being the history of public speaking,
I'm
right?
guilty as charged. I'm guilty
Yeah,
as charged. I sometimes still get myself, oh no, but I need this opening. And I'm like, why? I don't have to do
yeah,
anything. If it evokes the emotion in the audience and they're responding to you, I mean, Carl, you've been on a stage. Sometimes we do technically we do the right things, but the audience just doesn't respond. Now it's not the audience
yeah.
fault; it's our fault, right? It's always our fault,
Mhm.
right?
Of course.
Oh, there's no fault here, but we're not using the right tools for that audience, right? So
Yeah.
so so I don't think there's a one canvas of how to engage and connect with the audience, right? There's no one template. There's templates, and when
Mm,
you're new, I suggest you use those templates and understand them and explore them. But then you get to a certain level that you need to be free of them.
mhm,
You
mhm.
don't have to have an opening. You don't have to have a conclusion. as long as the audience leave the room and go like, I really felt that, man. Like, yeah, and I agree, right? And you may not conclude, you know. I asked ChatGPT, right? Let's talk about creativity. So by the way, I love ChatGPT. It's a tool, right? I said, write me a winning speech, right? And this is what he did. Technically, it was correct, technically, but it sounded something like this. Probably today it does it better. This is the early days because I panicked. I'm like, oh God, right? But this is what it is. Good morning. Today I would like to talk to you about three things. Thing number one, blah, blah, blah. Thing number two, technically it's correct.
Yeah.
It's absolutely, and then it says, in conclusion, you should do thing one, thing two, summary. You know, we all been there before. That's to me is the basics that you need to understand, but then you need to throw it out of the window. You need to look, you can't be slave to that structure. You really need to challenge it, and you will fail. And then you will fail again, and then you create magic.
Yes, yes. This is why public speaking is not a science. It's actually an art, because there's so many different ways to approach it. I remember once I was at a wedding and the father of the bride stood up and he had like two pieces of paper in his hands, and he wanted to do this joke where he would pretend to like rip up his script to show he didn't care about his daughter. And he had two pieces of paper, one with a script, one with like a blank page to rip up. And he wanted to rip up the blank page and then pick up the script, but he ended up ripping up his script. And so he had no idea. He had no idea what to say. And he was like kind of putting the pieces of it together. He was emming, he was umming. But you know what, Nitay? He was doing everything wrong from a public speaking technicality point of view, but it was beautiful. He had us howling in laughter for 20 minutes. Everything wrong. It was amazing. And that's just to illustrate the point that it's not about the techniques. Everything can work if it's done well. And that's where the creativity can come in if we do it intentionally. He didn't do that intentionally, but we can going forward.
As a public speakers, I think we have a duty to do it intentionally. But we need to understand the tools. Again, we can't be slaves to the tools. It's almost getting to a mastery level of understanding what vocal variety is, understanding all the different gestures and all the different tones you can use and all the movement on the stage and all the, you know, what's a hook, what's a callback, you know, like all the techniques, the writing techniques. And then once you master them, you must be free of them. And it's challenging because we are so confined to the structures and what you have to do. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything, but you must know all the tools so you can be free from them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Or master them, right? Yeah. I absolutely believe that, right? Yeah.
And when you get to that level of mastery, so you've kind of got the tools, you know, the basics, if you like. When you are thinking about, or maybe you're not even thinking about creativity, but when you're planning a presentation, do you always try and link the uniqueness to the message that you're describing? Do you link it that way, or do you think about it differently and just see like as in the content of the story and how I can make that unique, or is it kind of all in one? How do you insert that uniqueness?
So that's a fantastic question, and my journey into this was wrong at the beginning. Yeah, completely wrong. I was too busy on oh, this will be cool. Oh, this almost like gimmicky, you know. Oh, we should do that. Oh no, this will be good. Oh, and then there was no message in my speech. So you can have a lot of hot air and circus and balloons and we've all seen it before when someone is all big and then you go like, I have no idea what you were talking about for sport.
It was just a show.
But I love the balloons, right? Like, yeah, I'm not connecting here. Great ballooning and juggling, right? So I'm obviously exaggerating here. But this is when you're slave to the techniques, right? Or to trying to be unique, or to find a gimmick, or to push something forward that it just doesn't gel. My personal view, and that's how I start today, not always successfully, so we are clear, is I try and spend a lot of time before I even go into the speech. What is my message? And everyone who's either watching this or listening to it know that in theory it sounds easy, yeah, but it's hard. It's actually really hard to say, my message is about world peace. That's not enough. My message is about world peace. It needs to connect on the individual level. You need to think about it, simplify it, make sure that the implementation for the individual that is listening to it is it inspiring or whatever the purpose of the speech is, right? And that's not easy. That takes a lot of time. Then you start building your speech around that without the creativity. But as I write the speech, then I think, okay, I need to take the audience, and I don't want them just to hear me. Yeah, if I say that I had a tough time or a happy time or whatever time, right? I want them to feel it here. Go with me, not watch me feel it. I want them to feel it. So the question is then, as I'm sure you know, is how correct, using creativity, I can take them, I could put them in my shoes, and as I speak, I want them to feel what I feel. And let's take example. Say I met the love of my life, and I go, that's one thing. But how can I make them go, with me? That's where creativity needs to come to play. And say whatever. There's a breakup. Again, I'm making this up on the spot here, but I can say, oh, my heart was broken. That's level number one. Or I can say, I can be really emotional and really connect and have tears and go, oh, and they feel sorry for me. But that's not what we want. We want their heart to break. That's a third layer in. I can tell them, I can show them, or I can make them feel it. And it's not always easy. So you can tell them, oh, my heart is breaking. You can show them, oh, my heart is breaking. Yeah. Or you can make them break their heart.
Yeah.
And that's where creativity come into play. That's the three layers that I believe exist in public speaking. It's not always possible to make them feel everything, but in the core part, in the really important part, whether that's happy, sad, whatever it is, the emotions that we have to be creative, and they can't be standing next to you. They're standing in you, with you, and the heart is breaking, or they're laughing, or they're going or they love, or whatever it is. And you need to be creative how to do it. And there's no one way. It depends on the scenario, depends on the speech, depends on whatever it is, right?
Yeah, for sure. That's beautifully said.
Yeah.
Essentially, what the creativity is there is it's that sort of link between you and the audience, right? It's creating that unity between the two of you, and that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And there's so many different ways you can go about doing that. And that's where you have to really sit down and think, okay, what can I do here to really build that link? And that's where the world is your oyster, right?
I will take it even more left field. I think we have to learn from other art forms, because public speaking is an art form and it has certain tools, right?
Yes.
There's other art forms that communicate.
Yeah.
For example, dance is a form of communication. I mean, I don't know about you guys who was watching or listening, or you, Kyle. When I see Swan Lake and the dying swan, my heart goes off. Like I really feel she's not saying a word. There's the music and the wings going, breaking, and then the swan dies, and I'm really feeling it. I'm like, wow, that's a real talent just from movement to do it. Or when someone sings beautifully, or if there's a piece of music that makes me emotional. But as public speaking, when I look at it, I'm like, oh, that's vocal variety. Why is that vocal variety works on me? What elements do they use there that I can bring to public speaking? When that swan does the wing and the movement, that's creativity too. I'm like, okay, now I'm not going to do a Swan Lake on public speaking. I'm stupid, right? But what from those movements I can capture and bring to my speech, because they help not just listen the words that I'm using, which are very important, of course, but my physicality, my tonality, my musical rhythm, the way I speak. So that's where the creativity needs to come from. Don't be locked into vocal variety and gestures. There's a big world out there.
Yeah. And to give people another example, you can also look into the world of film, for instance. One of the best ways to to kind of put the audience in your shoes, to make the audience feel what you're feeling, is through a beautiful twist. And if you take a film, for instance, like Sixth Sense, have you seen Sixth Sense, Nitai?
I have, yes.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
amazing film. So that I'm not going to give too much away for anyone, but essentially we begin the film thinking somebody in it is real, and then later on there is a moment where we realize that individual is not a person at all, and that moment of twist is like for the audience, so they feel the same shock that the main character in the film felt, and that's something that you can use in a speech as well potentially, but you've got to plan it out very, very well and strategically. But just to give people an idea of tools you could use to create that
Very
feeling
well
of
said.
going through what you're going
Very
through.
well said. It's a storytelling. At the end of the day, what we're doing, we're telling stories and we're making people feel the story. And I call it an emotional reset because people come along and then you say a few things and you use your hands and your vocal variety. And at the end of whatever it is that you're doing, that black box that you're doing, something needs to happen at the end. And that means you change the emotional state that the audience ends up with to align with the message that you're assuming you're sending a message, to align with the message that you want them to have. It's like an emotional reset.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at the in terms of public speaking.